Hello, everybody, and welcome to this month's Social Media Manager Q&A with Erinn Dhesi. Hi, Erinn, how are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. So, for those of you who are just tuning in, on whether it be Facebook or LinkedIn or a Facebook group or wherever you're tuning in from. I just want to say hello and welcome to this month's Q&A with Erinn from Agora Pulse. Every month we get together and we answer your burning questions around social media management, or Erinn does anyway, so I'll just read them out. And if I can add any value, then of course I will. And this month, we're going to be talking about dealing with comments and complaints on social media. So obviously, this is a huge thing that social media managers have to deal with, dealing with complaints, comments, especially, when there's a crisis and that kind of thing. So I'm really excited to hear from Erinn today on that. I wonder what that sound was then. So I'm really excited to hear from Erinn today, as I am sure you guys are as well. But before we do that, let's introduce Erinn. Let's find out more about her and what she does, and a little bit more as well about Agora Pulse and their platform. So over to you, Erinn. Great to see you here.
Oh my God, thank you. It's a Tuesday, isn't it? Feels very Tuesday to me. So I usually don't like Tuesdays, but I think I like it today because I'm here with you, so that's fine. So I'm Erinn, social media and content manager for Agora Pulse. Agora Pulse is a social media scheduling tool which allows you to publish, manage an inbox, and do social listening for a variety of social media platforms. And that noise is my door, so because there's a draft. So please bear with that. So yeah, I run the social media channels for the UK and Ireland branch of Agora Pulse. That is our Facebook, our Twitter, our YouTube, and our Instagram. And my job is to, raise brand awareness for Agora Pulse, but also give social media managers and people who work in social advice, tips, and guidance on how to get the best out of working in social. I think we all know by working in it or dabbling in it that it moves so quickly. So our job really is to obviously, promote our tool and get people using it, but also, share knowledge and expertise and advice to people so they can keep track of everything that moves so quickly with all different types of channels. So today we're going to talk about comments and complaints, and that's something I'm I've worked on quite a bit in my career and role. So it's very much community management really is the kind of realm that it's talking about, and it's really has evolved in the past 4 or 5 years about how brands and people on Twitter kind of respond to complaints and comments from customers, because it has evolved with the way that the platforms have evolved. So we'll be going into that, what best practices are and what kind of the differing opinions are about responding to comments and complaints.
Thank you so much, Erinn. I was just checking there to see what people were saying, but it's up here on the screen. Yeah, it's a really exciting topic and it's a really important topic. And Facebook user, I don't know who it is who's commented this, but they're saying such an important topic. It worries so many people and can stop them using social media to market their business. Thanks for covering it. You are welcome. Yeah, do you want to respond? I know it's not really a question.
Yeah, but I think it's definitely become so much more important because, platforms want engagement, and the engagement that they want can be good or bad. And from what I've been reading recently, so I try and keep up with the topic as much as I can, is that there will be there is research showing that perhaps brands responding to all negative comments is going to affect their algorithm and their perception, people's perception of the brand, and what's going to get pushed up on their timeline. So there's definitely a balance that people need to have when it comes to comments and complaints. And we're going to go on the kind of concept of being open or being closed with them. So yeah, I think it's definitely something that people need to firm up on. I'm happy to share all my knowledge about it.
So obviously a lot of brands use social media for talking to their customers and that kind of thing, and actually to handle complaints. So some social media channels, for example, the social media puts out, I'm here today from 10 till 5 to answer all of your questions and help you with customer service and that kind of thing. Are we discussing, do you want to discuss a little bit about the customer service side of dealing with comments and complaints and that kind of thing? And then just, you know, in general, if there's a crisis or something like that and you're having to deal with complaints there. I guess my first question would be then in that case is social media the right place to deal with complaints and you know, customer service, because it's for everyone to see, isn't it? And is that the right thing to do, or would you recommend something different?
I think we moved beyond whether it's right or wrong. It's essential now. Like, there's maybe 3 years ago, 4 years ago, we could have said whether it was right or wrong, but it's like, especially with what we're happening with the pandemic, where, you know, people were cut off from physically visiting places and stores and things like that. Everything went online, and now it's going to stay. People will expect an online presence from a brand, and expect, you know, that someone to respond to them. So it's here to stay. And the first thing I would do to anybody who's starting out, putting out a brand, or, you know, they've come into an organization where this is a feature, is that you have to plan it. You have to plan for all the kinds of eventualities and the different types of complaints that you would expect to get. And that can be referred to loosely as your crisis comms plan, because complaints can evolve into crises. So the first thing I would do for anyone who wants to do this is don't go in and start vibing and feel like what you feel like you need to start saying. Plan out everything. Being an overthinker really helps with this sort of task, because you have to sort of think, okay, if I've got this product. So for example, you know, I used to work for a housing association. So imagine the amounts of complaints that you get for a housing association. If it's not about rent, it's about plumbing, it's about this, it's about that. It's going to be about or development. So there's so many different areas in which identify the areas in which you will get comments and complaints for, and then, you know, and then decide between yourselves and your team a scale for each topic of the kind of comments and response you would be getting. So something innocuous as the rent payment website isn't working, to why have you not refunded me? What the hell is wrong with you? So like there is a scale of positive. So positive is in this. Comments can be positive. So you need to go from each topic, scale positive to neutral to negative, and have examples of that happening. I mean, you will, if you're an existing brand, you will have examples of this, because they would keep coming in and in and in. But if you're someone new, there's the door again. If you're someone new, you have to sort of think about all the potential sort of pitfalls about everything that you're providing as a service. So I would absolutely get a plan in place, and scale the kinds of responses that you're going to expect, so everyone in your team is clear. This is what is one of the things within working customer service, that customer service is so aligned with social media. And more often than not, sometimes you may find that your customer service team doesn't have the social media skills that the social media manager has. And what people don't, I find, is sometimes with organizations and brands, is that those two teams, unless they're a really big established brand and they've understood it, smaller places don't understand that sort of, you know, that thing between whatever. I'm trying to understand who that drilling is. Is that coming from me, or is that coming from you? I can't tell. No, it's coming from me. Okay. I might have to mute so I can close my window. Is that okay? I might have to like just do that very quick.
Yeah, go for it. Go for it. The thing is, guys, when you're doing things live, you you never know if someone's going to start drilling or an alarm's going to go off or something like that. So anyway, she's back now. So but we can't hear you. Your volume's not working.
So I really should put a sign outside my door in my building, or just in the reception: live stream happening. Everyone shut up. But you know, that's not. I don't think that's the best etiquette for people, is it, in a building? But whereas what was I talking about? So it was. Yeah, that relationship between social media team and your customer service team has to be very close and on point. It's going to be an extension of your role to sort of manage this team or manage their expectations, and beware that, and make sure that your customer service team, if you're in a large organization, has the social media skills in place to actually do the job. Because I found in places that social media has been a bigger part of what they do in the past year, but they just don't know how to respond to it. Which isn't always brilliant, but there are things in place like a plan to get everyone on the same page. So once you've kind of scaled those responses and understand the kinds of range of responses you get, then you establish the way you respond to them. And whether that means what the exact type of comments you're going to say, to the point where you have to escalate it to other people within your business to get the appropriate responses, and make sure you are doing it in a timely, detailed and public manner. Those are the three things you really have to sort of consider when it comes to comments and complaints. It has to be timely, it has to be detailed, and it has to be public. There's no way around those three things when it comes to giving a response. But when it comes to that response, there's a lot of planning coming behind that response. Obviously, there will be things that you cannot plan for. COVID was the thing that many brands, no one knew how to do that. So crisis plans, I've been talking to loads of social media managers recently, and they were reflecting on that time. Everything got thrown out the window, everything. So like new plans have to come in place. So be aware that, you can plan as much as you want. However, be prepared to throw it out when something new comes along. It's that adaptability that always comes up in social media. Something for this has to be adaptable as well as, being structured.
Absolutely. Do you know what? I actually find that really interesting, and it's not going to be for everybody because some people don't get the level of complaints and customer service inquiries that, for example, a big brand or a big e-commerce company are getting. To actually just have, the answers to the questions laid out already. So the answers to the normal customer service complaints, some stock answers really that you can kind of make human depending on who the social media manager is a really, really important thing to have, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
How would you implement that kind of thing if you are working in a company who's getting a lot of questions, especially through Twitter and that kind of thing, where it's a very public forum, isn't it?
Yeah.
How would you implement it? Would it just be something that people cut and paste every time, or would it be an auto response every time certain keywords come up and that kind of thing? I know, like on Agorapulse, you have a community management tool. So, is there a way to kind of scale that, and or is it someone sitting there all day long just replying to all of the comments and that kind of thing? How do you put it in place, and how do you scale that?
So you put it in place by getting a decent social media scheduling tool. Like, it has to be something. So Agorapulse is really good at that. So thank you for that segue. What I can do in Agorapulse is that we have the ability, depending on your kind of plan that you put in place or the size of your organization, you can, with the inbox, filter with keywords. So if you know that, something that has a keyword like not happy, that's negative. So like what the scheduling tool can do is filter out the keywords. It will get funneled into certain labels. So you'll set up certain labels as comments, complaints, or complaints, plumbing, complaints, rent, something like that. And then that gets filtered through your inbox. So you can see when you start from the day, okay, I've got this amount about this complaint, this amount about this about this. So the inbox feature that has keywords filtering is very, very important if you get a lot of complaints on a range of topics. Within that as well, I can assign certain comments to other people within my team without us, taking it to Slack or taking it to email. It all stays in one place and is much quicker. So each team member gets their assigned inbox when they log into Agorapulse. And then you sort of, what's ideal really is that when you have a sort of customer service team, you have obviously the head of customer service or the team leader that would, assign and funnel all of those tasks completely to somebody else. You can also within Agorapulse automatically do that, so it does go to somebody. So to Paul always handles plumbing complaints, and it goes to him straight away. Or you have someone in place who does a top line overview and assigns things to certain people. And the assigning doesn't stop there. Like, you can add notes within Agorapulse. So if you see a certain very varied complaint and it's going to prompt more questions, you can give as much information to the person who's going to eventually answer it and give them much context as possible. What's also great is that if you have repeat offenders, is not the best word, but repeat complainers who come back again and again, you're able to label users. So, when it comes to maybe someone new joining the business, or you've got a team in rotation when it comes to doing customer service, because I know people do shifts on these sort of things, they're aware that this is a person that has come before. This is someone who always complains about this, or, who's had a history of that, and that really can reflect in the kind of responses you give to them. The last thing someone's going to want or need is like dealing with the customer service agent who's completely anonymous and doesn't understand their problems. So it's like those little features that make the whole response human. And obviously, of course, we have saved replies. So you can have categories of saved replies when it comes to something innocuous as like a comment that is very much neutral, or something that's much more sort of, on the negative end of things. So the tool gives you loads of smaller features that make the whole bigger process of community managing complaints and comments much more streamlined and in one place. I mean, that's what people need, especially now when things move so quickly, that it all can happen in one place and you're not going back and forth between tabs or, different communication channels to get something sorted, that's when things fall down. I've noticed that all the time and time again. If you're trying to chase for an email to escalate a comment, it just goes haywire. So Agorapulse is very much there to for you to take control of those comments and complaints.
Absolutely. So those kind of tools are hugely important, really, as a social media manager. Okay. So guys, if you're watching, you can just, if you post a comment underneath the live stream to ask a question, then we'll show it on the screen and ask it to Erinn. So if there's anything that you're thinking, right, I would love to know the answer to this around comments and complaints and that kind of thing on social media, then please do feel free to ask it. But my next question is just coming away from the complaints and customer service side, more into the comment side. So do you think if people are commenting under your post and that kind of thing on social media, you can assume that the post is quite engaging and people are interested in what's being shared or discussed and that kind of thing. So what do you do as a social media marketer? Do you reply to all of those comments? Should you leave them? Like if there's a lot of comments, is it worth the time to sit and kind of reply to everybody? I know it comes so much under community management. It's a really important thing, but from your point of view, how do you go about it? Is it important to sit and make sure you're doing that every day, or do you just ignore them, or what? What's the best thing?
So there is, I think 5 years ago, somebody in comms would have told you, ignore it, or just funnel it away to something, a closed response. So when it comes to community management, there are two responses now. There's an open response or there's a closed response. And brands have been taking very different approaches to these over the past few years. So the ones that have been much more open I notice now, are train providers and airline providers. They will use their main channel to be as open as possible in answering people's complaints, like, why has this train not come, blah blah blah. So they say, oh, this has happened because of this and this. They don't funnel them to something that's more closed, which is, if you've got a formal complaint, funnel it, use our contact form to give you a complaint. So McDonald's does that. McDonald's, they probably get, McDonald's is so global that they don't have time to respond to absolutely everything. So what they do is they go, here's a complaint form, we've got a complaint, do it there. So obviously that depends. So your openness depends on the size of your brand and the size of people you have in your team. If you're just starting out, I would at least dedicate an hour in the morning, an hour in the afternoon to respond to complaints on social media. The whole point is that it's meant to be timely and detailed, and it is going to be public. So you do need to dedicate the time if you're going to start getting complaints. So if you just put out a product and there's going to be some questions about it, then maybe add more time on it. But there should be dedicated time in the morning and in the afternoon of responding to those comments. You can't stay glued to social media all day. You've got other things to do. So put the time in, but make sure everything is responded to within 24 hours of them responding. That has to be just a part of your role. And then obviously if your team expands, you can get someone who's completely dedicated just to doing that. But if you're just starting out, expect to put in the time to do that. But if you're part of a larger organization, then it's going to be down to someone completely dedicated to that role to do it. And it's up to you whether you make that a part of your main channel, or you have a customer support channel for that kind of thing, or you have another process in place where it comes to emails. The complaint has to eventually go through an email to be responded by you guys.
Absolutely. Thank you, Erinn. And can you give an example of a company that you've seen doing a really, really good job of this in terms of customer service?
Ooh, I'd say Glossier are very, very good at it. I've noticed as well. This is reflecting on my experience when I had to complain about something, I usually don't complain a lot on social media. I just go straight to the email. So but they were very good in responding to something. I gave them a sort of a vague, not, it wasn't a complaint, but just like a query about a product that hadn't arrived. It didn't happen. I needed a refund quite quickly. They responded within, gosh, like at least 3 hours to my to them. And then as soon as it got to the DMs, it was very, very swift. They knew exactly what they needed to do to respond to a person who had not been given their product. And it was very clear to me that they had a plan in place to get that. And they were very clear on the information I needed to give them. That was really important as well, that, there wasn't a back and forth of like, obviously you need to kind of figure out what the problem is with this person, but they were very clear. I need this from you and this from you and this from you. And these are the next steps you can expect. So it's like, when it comes to the complaints, when you're in the thick of a complaint, what you really need to be again is detailed. So the person needs to understand the journey of which they're going to go through with you when it comes to that complaint. So they would expect for them to give you more information about the problem they have. You would tell them, I'm going to go do this with it. You're going to expect a reply within this. You're going to get it here. So it has to be as clear as possible when you get to that point. Okay, this is the customer journey from this point, because if the customer is so unclear about where the complaint is going, it's just going to get worse. It's going to get worse, and they're going to double down. And if they're really testy, they will take it out of the DMs again, which is obviously, the closed approach is taking them to the DMs, and you do it in a private space, which is generally the kind of best practice to do, is to take it somewhere closed. But if you mess up that closed process, they're going to go back in the open and they're going to start complaining. None of you guys are like responding to me properly, crap customer service, things like that. So once again, have a plan there in place when it comes to directly dealing with the person.
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, just having a plan for everything when it comes to social media is really important. And we should be ready to, be human and react and that kind of thing. But actually, underpinning everything, if you just know what you're going to do in the event of either a crisis or what you're going to post when, the important things are coming up and that kind of thing, it's just really, really important. But I do know some social media managers that literally just do everything as it comes, and just take it like that, and which is, in itself strategy, I guess. But then I know other people, obviously, that plan every single thing. So actually, sometimes I think middle ground is really important, isn't it? Making sure you've got so much, planned, and then so much that you can do kind of like on a whim if you need to, when you feel creative and that kind of thing. Although sometimes it's difficult because you have to get things signed off in a brand, which is why I think sometimes when brands are commenting on each other's posts and that kind of thing on Twitter, that it isn't planned, but actually they are planned. A lot of these campaigns are completely planned, and perhaps the brands have got the same agencies that are dealing with the social media and that kind of thing. But to us, we're like, wow, McDonald's and Burger King and all of these other fast food chains are talking to each other, but actually this was completely planned out, which is, I think some people will find really surprising, won't they?
Yeah, that's how a plan looks so good when you can't tell there's a plan.
Yeah, exactly. But I think we know better, don't we? Anyway, we've got a question here from Kate Goodman, and Kate's saying, what advice would you give to someone who has just started out in social media management? That's a really good question, Kate. Thank you.
Yeah. So, Kate, I would we kind of reflected on earlier, plan everything. Plan. So, when you start doing these comments and responding to these comments, it's really daunting. It really, really is. But a plan in place, and basically an escalation plan of what's a good comment, what's a bad comment, how you respond, how you would escalate it. What I like to do in my plans is that there's code green to orange to yellow, what goes green, yellow, orange, red. So even then, it's as I'm a visual person, so I need to know, okay, this is a red comment, this is a yellow comment, this is a green comment, and then go from there and go back and check that. So I would definitely, plan your responses, understand within you to yourself what is a good response and a bad response, and then Google escalation plans. There are loads on loads of organization and comms sort of platforms that share the kind of escalation plans that they have in place, and you can have a look and try and copy and paste what works for you in that. So I definitely have a Google about escalation plans on what you think would work for you. And then also, depending on the brand and organization that you work for, look at your competitors, look how they're doing it, and the kind of responses they give out to people. If it's similar, like if you're a makeup brand, for example, there's so much more room to be informal. Look at Pretty Little Thing, the way that I mean, sometimes some of the things that they do are a bit like questionable, but they have a real you get a real understanding of the kind of the response you're going to get from them, because you can see consistently how they, the tone of the way in which they respond to people, the tone in which a fashion brand is going to respond is going to be so different to a chain provider. So understand what your competitors are doing, notice what they're doing well, notice what they're doing badly, and try and adapt to that as well.
Thank you. I hope that was helpful, Kate. Now, you gave us a good example of a company who you think is doing really well with customer service and that kind of thing on social media. Yeah. So what about an example of a company that's doing really poorly? And I don't know, last year, I think it was Wetherspoons, wasn't it, that decided to have no social media anymore? I don't know if that's still the case, but they said, no, we're coming off social media and that kind of thing. And I just thought that's a little bit weird. And then there was all this talk about whether everybody's going to start doing that now because Wetherspoons have, and obviously they haven't, because social media is a great line of communication, directly to your customers. So it was kind of a strange thing to do. But is there a company that's using social media you think really badly to deal with customer service complaints and that kind of thing? Whether they've started arguments or rows with their customers and that kind of thing.
Well, we're really going to start spilling the tea, aren't we? So what if Lisa, what if I leave Agorapulse and I've got to go get another job and I'm slacking people off? No, I think it's very much.
Maybe you can go and work with them and help them to improve. So there you go.
It depends how I frame this next answer, doesn't it? If I can do that, finesse it in a nice way. I mean, I've not really noticed any specific brands that I was like, oh, for God's sake, that is bad. But I do notice the how ineffectual, especially not ineffectual, but the challenges of being working in the public sector and doing these complaints. I think there's not been like a hugely bad way they're doing it, but it's quite glaring that you sometimes cannot win when you're working in public sector comms and you're dealing with complaints that are to do with like waiting times or things that are cancelled that are going to affect a lot of people at any given place. So I think there's no been glaring bad ways to do it, but I would say as a sort of maybe a warning to people listening who want to go work in public sector comms, or probably an acknowledgement to people who work in public sector comms. The community management of that is so much harder, so much harder. It's not about you can't throw a gift voucher at somebody if something's gone missing. It's really like you're dealing with like huge things. So for example, the NHS, they're not bad at doing it, but like they deal with so many different types of comments and complaints that it must be very overwhelming for them to do that.
Absolutely. So Erinn, you were telling me about some research earlier
yes.
that was done, and I would just love to hear a little bit more about that research, if that's okay.
Yeah, so obviously everything is changing all the time, and then we have the social media marketers out there who are sort of giving their immediate live advice about what they're experiencing in the sector. But I do like to be a nerd. I see someone's mentioned Stuart Hall's like, what about petrol companies? Yeah, I think at the moment petrol companies are probably going through the ringer when it comes to customer comments and complaints. I've not observed them yet, but I will. Now that you reminded me, Stuart, I'll go have a look about how they're kind of responding to a crisis at the moment.
That's you know what, Erinn? I just wanted the petrol companies, or at least the local petrol garages, to just put on social media, like if they had a delivery or not, because it would have just made so much difference. And I didn't have any petrol, and I thought, right, where can I go? And I looked on the social media page to see if they'd said, actually, we've just had delivery. If you come down and do you know what I mean? Then it would help you to understand if there were any. So I drove to petrol stations with no petrol, trying to find somewhere that had petrol, and none of them did. But if they'd have just put a note out said we had no petrol, it would have saved people, I think, a lot of trouble and a lot of effort, which would have been one of the smartest things they could have done, I think, on social media.
Yes, that's such a good point, because I've noticed now, like I noticed that, that's when other people step in to say, I've just been to this pump, and you end up like keyword searching the local one to you to make that happen. No, that's such a good point. And yeah, I'm definitely going to observe what they have and haven't been doing, and I wonder why no one sort of brought that up with them. Maybe it's a, like, you know, because obviously, you know, there's loads of other things that big organizations linked to those places. So I do wonder why they've not done that. But that kind of goes into sort of the kind of research I've been looking at. So I do like to be a nerd. I do like to look outside of what people immediately like us say and what the research is saying as well. And what the Harvard Business Review they did a sort of look at negative effects of complaints and publicization of, you know, publicization of like communities and weighing up whether you should respond to everything or you should sort of ignore everything, or not ignore but be very closed off about it. And what they found is that there are caveats to this research. So they observed brands from 2014 to 2015, looked at all, like, you know, keyword research, and looked at top 500 brands and things like that to see how their engagement levels were affected by answering absolutely everything. And when I mean being open, they actually figured out the problem within the each reply back to each other, or they went closed and they immediately sent them off to somewhere else, so funnel them to an email or a specific channel. And what they found was that, and this is, I'll caveat, this is 2014, 2015, years ago, so it was a very different landscape and way less brands, is that, you know, if they apply, if a brand replied to everything within the DMs, not DMs, within the tweet replies and things like that, their engagement was negatively affected and the brand perception was negatively affected, because all people saw was people complaining and you responding all the time. You know, when you go into someone tweets and replies, you see what they replied to, and if you see negative comment after negative comment and their timeline is filled with it, your perception is like, oh my God, these people must not know what they're doing at all any of the time. But that might not actually be the case. It's because, you know, they are somebody that is a company, an organization that is so big that they're bound to get comments and complaints about literally everything that they do. So it really made me think about, and also they touched upon the fact that the algorithm will push that more and more at people when they're going to search for this brand. So if the most engaged thing is someone talking about, you know, how that this a product recall was totally botched, that's going to come up on your timeline when you're searching more and more for that brand. So there's definitely like a level in which you have to sort of want to have a closed response or an open response to things, and it really depends on the size of your brand, the size of your team, and the visibility of what you're doing and the products that you're putting in place and promoting. So it's a lot to think about, but it made me really think, you know, there's no one size fits all when it comes to comments and complaints. We all have plans in place, but then when you put that plan together, you really got to think, okay, what is our approach going to be for the first 6 months? You know, put a time, if you're very new, put a time limit on it. So we're going to do everything openly within the tweets and replies. We'll see how that goes. And if that's not working for us, then we're going to have to start funneling through or having a closed response to things if things escalate.
Absolutely. And I suppose over time you'll learn as well, you know, what's working and what's not working. Same with anything. I think you'll have to change your plans accordingly as you go.
Especially if there's, you know, there are just new ways to start complaining on social media. So like, honestly, like if Twitter brings in something new to like make replies, or you can track replies, or maybe I'm going to end up giving them ideas, but if they if they do like time limits on something, or they give you a reminder to say that person has not responded to you, follow up with them, like, you know, Gmail does that. They're like, you're not up to this email, do you want to do something about it? If Twitter starts doing that with us, I don't know what we're going to do. But like,
they do it in Facebook Messenger, don't they? Like, they give you the kind of fast response badge, and if you don't respond very quickly, it tells people how long it takes you to reply and that kind of thing, doesn't it? So yeah, if Twitter had a thing that said rapid responder, like if it was a customer service account, then that would be that would be really interesting.
Really interesting. It could be great or really bad for us. I don't know yet, but otherwise, I think Twitter should.
It'd be great for customers to know, wouldn't it? What you know, what's happening. I suppose it's just not so good for the companies. Anyway, so the next question that I was going to actually ask you, Erinn, was what are your kind of, to round up a little bit, I think, today, because I think this has been really super interesting and there's a lot to think about. And the main thing I've taken from this is that you really need to plan. And I said it already, you really do need to make a plan of some sort. Doesn't matter how big or small you are, at some point you are going to have customer service queries and complaints and comments and that kind of thing. So could you just round off and tell us, what you think is the most important things, 3 or 4 things that people should be doing right now?
I think, like what I mentioned earlier, it has to be timely, your response, and your response has to be detailed, and there has to be some public acknowledgement of it. So yeah, timely, detailed, public. But then, the rate of how you're going to be public is so up to you. That is something you really can control, whether you want to, like I said, just hash it out on the timeline or take it to the DMs. But being timely and detailed is the most important, and is the thing that's you're going to get called up on much quicker. If someone's going to know that you've not responded to them, and they will come back to you again and again until they want a response, and they will point out to you if your response is not detailed enough for them. So be prepared to put those 3 things at the top of your mind when it comes to comments and complaints.
Wow, Erinn, really, really good advice, really, really good tips, and really much appreciated. And if you are watching live and you thought, and you haven't added a question or anything like that, please do feel free to, ask a question afterwards, because we'll be there to answer them. I'll just tag Erinn so that she can see any questions that you have to answer. And of course, you're around in the digital women community, aren't you, anyway, on Facebook, and we're on LinkedIn as well. So, feel free to keep asking if you do have any more, or maybe you're catching this broadcast later and you wasn't able to watch it live and you still feel that you have a question or there's something that wasn't answered. Yeah. So thank you very much for today, Erinn. We're looking forward to seeing you again next month. Do you know what the topic is for next month?
Gotta remind me.
I don't know. We'll have a look and we'll share it up. I can't
see, like, we're busy ladies, and like we've got so many live events happening, but it's going to be great. I've got to apologize also. Yeah, I apologize also for the drilling sounds earlier. I mean, that is the hazards of like live chat. So when you're looking back at this, you're like, what the hell happened there? Yeah, somebody had a penthouse upstairs and they felt like just doing some work on it in the middle of the day, which is nice for them, isn't it? In the penthouse.
Yeah, it's always the way when you're live streaming, this happens, or when you're recording something really important and then all of a sudden it's like your third take and it was the perfect take, and then suddenly the builders start drilling away outside or something like that. So it is always the way. Erinn, yeah, this has been a really, really good chat today. It's been really informative. It's been really interesting finding out about how to deal with complaints and that kind of thing on social media, because it's a huge part of social media, being a social media manager. It's not all about creating snazzy posts and scheduling out content and that kind of thing. There's a lot more that goes into social media management than that. And thanks for all of the great advice and great tips and that kind of thing as well. Like we said, we're back again next month. Topic to be confirmed. We'll share it out with you. It's always something different and it's always something exciting. And Erinn, of course, is a fountain of knowledge. So you will be able to basically pick her brains on any questions that you have to ask. So Erinn, how can we find out more about you and about Agorapulse? Where can we go to kind of connect with you? And how can people, we've got a link actually to that we can share up as well to get a free trial for Agorapulse, which we'll share in the comments in just a moment so you guys can see it as well.
Yeah, so if you sign up as a member of Digital Women, you will get a free trial of Agorapulse, and you will get, and the free trial includes you using all the features up until our premium plan. So, you got a full depth of the range of the features that we offer to people on individual plans, right up until custom and pro and business plans. To find us on social media, you can follow us at Agorapulse UK IRL on Twitter, Facebook, and Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and on YouTube as well. We're working on lots of amazing new content, especially for our YouTube channel as well. So, we're going to be, I think I can give a little tease. We're interviewing a lot of social media managers at the moment to talk about their view of working in social. So that is upcoming with us, and we're really excited about that. Also, you can visit us at agorapulse.com, which you can learn more about the tool, sign up for the tool. We've got blogs as well, so we're all sharing loads of different types of social media knowledge and different resources. So yeah, follow us on our channels at Agorapulse UK IRL, and visit our website.
That sounds really exciting. And if you want to follow Digital Women, you can just, you're either in the group already, or if you're watching on LinkedIn and you're not following us, please do follow us. and you can find us on digitalwomen.live. And we do have a whole page dedicated to these Q&As with Erinn, and some from Ravi, who was doing it before as well. So you'll be able to watch all of the episodes back again and get full up on all of those amazing social media management tips and tricks from the experts at Agorapulse. So again, thank you very much, Erinn. It was so great to be here, and thank you everybody for tuning in. We will see you again next month with another exciting installment of the Social Media Manager Q&A with Agorapulse. Take care.